Okay, let's talk a little bit about agriculture. What this one is a good one to turn to if you want to turn to this. Policy 55 talks about providing a property tax credit for the perpetual conservation of Taro systems on private land or agricultural conservation or cultural easements for owners and lessees who enter into long-term agreements 20 years to rehabilitate Taro systems to active use. So this is one of those carrots, incentives that we're looking at as far as, and it coincides with that. In 2008, the Hawaii State Legislature passed Act 211, establishing the Taro Security and Purity Task Force. So there's already existing justification at the state level for this kind of incentive. So that's one way that we're trying to help agriculture in Waipio Valley, specific to Taro. And then we have some other policies. 56 talks about these different partners creating a simplified stream maintenance permitting process, getting together and agreeing on a permitting process for Wailoa Stream and the other streams in Waipio Valley. So that's another way that can also affect agriculture. It's also natural resources, but it affects the Taro Lo'i as well. Let me get into kokua. So this is when we need some other agencies or entities help appropriating funds to the county to help develop recommendations of lands to be important. This is a reference to a policy in the regular ag section, but we need some help as far as important agricultural land designations at the state level, and Waipio could definitely be considered in that. So that's part of that. Reconsider the state's agricultural land capability class designations to better protect viable Taro growing lands. This is also in relation to that task force, the Taro Security and Purity Task Force from 2008, one of their findings. So it's trying to support that particular task force findings in Taro protection. Again, it talks about stream maintenance from a bill that was at the time, HB 414, relating to funding and technical assistance for stream maintenance. Now, recently, I don't know if anybody can update me, I couldn't find it referenced. I know that in April 22nd, I think, BLNR met on possibly funding for stream maintenance funds for Waipio. And I saw that in the news and I could not find any reference to the determination that BLNR made. So, do you have something on that?
Haolo is the agent, is the group that applied for the funding.
Okay.
They're going through the final stages of acquiring the funding to purchase equipment for stream maintenance.
Okay.
They've since partnered up with the Taro Farmers Association, and we're working collaboratively, rejuvenating our waterhead leaders. In fact, we're planning a meeting for next week already. Okay. According to the person from Haola that's responsible for the communication with DLNR, it's practically at the final stage.
Okay, that's what I thought too. Okay, so that's good. So in this case, Kokua Action 27 might need to be revised if it is no longer as applicable, or it could be tweaked to be.
So the equipment is one thing, but
right.
Ongoing funding to keep the equipment operational, and there's always a need for additional.
Oh, certainly, yeah. So it might. I don't know if the wording needs to change. If so, we'll look at that as far as what we find is implemented throughout the review process. If something changes, this might need to be. It won't disappear, but it might need to be revised a little bit to reflect the current status.
Information on the verbiage on permitting processes too.
Okay.
Because that takes a long time to get the permits in order for them to go to the different sites to actually continue to do the maintenance. And if it's an ongoing maintenance, it's important for them to be able to have like a block permit. Okay. Instead of always having to go back to get permits every year or after a flood. Because normally they can get emergency permits after a flood declaration. But when people get plenty water anyway, when it's not raining or it's flooding, it needs to have regular maintenance throughout the whole river. And the permitting process has been fair for them. Right. So that really helps if there's something in there that could actually help the farmers.
Okay, good. So we can look at that language and make sure it addresses that need adequately. COCOA Action 28 talks about releasing allocated disaster funding to help Taro farmers and residents to avoid future flood damage. So this is also from the task force of 2008, and it meant that funds were not actually released, perhaps. And so we want to make sure that's up to date, and if that's something that, because we want to be able to prevent future flood damage, not just react to floods. So.
Part of the, the thing that's not easily distinguished is that, not all of the problems we have with the water is, flood related. Mm-hmm. You can have an earthquake, way up at the top, then you get a bunch of debris that over a matter of years, tends to migrate all the way down the river, and then the next thing you know, we got a blockage down at the bottom that backs the water up and then changes the water level. So, there's need for stream maintenance, aside of just stuff that happens when we get floods.
So this is specific to response to a specific flood, but I hear what you're saying, yeah. And then the last one on this is 29, apply for specialty crop block grants to strengthen taro production. So that's one of the ones sitting here. So there are other, as far as agriculture in the general agricultural section, and we recognize that the county, we don't have a Department of Agriculture, so we have limited capacity. We are trying to address it and be supportive, especially at a land use level, as far as preserving and providing whatever tax incentives we can. But is there anything else that you would like to address that you think the county could be assisting with, that we have jurisdiction over, realizing that the state also has a lot of jurisdiction at the ag level? But anything else we want to open it up back up as far as the ag conversation?
The water, access to the water for the taro growing lands is just as important, because they need access for the waters to come into the valley, and that gets compromised because now where the water comes from way in the back gets developed. I mean, because we know that the water comes from Waipio, technically. Yeah. So sometimes diversions happen, or for other agricultural uses, for other farmers. So it's really important that the Waipio taro farmers or the Waipio farmers get adequate and appropriate amount of water to grow their crops as well.
So you brought up that, and it reminds me that there is a policy 44 talking about watershed management goals, and it's basically we need to collaborate better with all these different agencies like Three Mountain Alliance, USDA, Natural Resource Conservation Service, Soil and Water Conservation District, to reduce runoff, maximize soil and water conservation, and protect and effectively manage watersheds in natural areas. And in that list, it's kind of a big list of what that collaboration should involve, is mentioned collaborate with the Waipio Valley community in implementing the stream management plan. So you are specifically mentioned in that watershed section as well, separately outside the Waipio Valley section. So you are addressed to some degree also in the watershed issue in recognition of that. And there's many more points, as you can see, as far as watershed. That's something that the county, the CDP addresses, that we need to do a little bit better at partnering. It's mostly a state function as far as a lot of the soil and water conservation issues, but the county has a role in this as well, and we want to be a better partner in that. And so there's several different policies in the CDP that direct the county to start collaborating with these other agencies and with other groups to create plans and be able to manage those resources better. We
also know the importance of the taro growing lands and kalo to the culture, as well as to the sustainability and the economy of the farmers, right? Because a lot of them actually grow it commercially, right, or they grow it to help sustain their families. It's a cultural tradition, yeah, what they're doing. It's really, really important. You hear over and over again, you hear Waipio Taro Farmers Association. And so it's important that we also put an emphasis on the priority that the lands should, or majority of the lands should be set aside for taro growing. That should be the priority, because on this whole island, you don't hear taro growing in Ka'u, that's Ka'u coffee or orange, even in Kona. They have all these different crops, but definitely kalo is the crop that is grown in Waipio. So we need to continue to perpetuate that kind of tradition, and it should be a higher priority than other types of agriculture. So we're not against, I would say, other types of farming, but at the same time, it is so unique to Taro farming that it should have that designation, that should be a
Right.
priority.
Okay, and so that makes me think,
I don't want to stop the conversation, but I just want everybody to be aware that we have gone over a little bit. And we still have just this other last section of access and safety to talk about. So let's see if we have anything else on agriculture.
I can make one comment on the
Sure.
Hamakua, ditch and stuff like that. Department of Agriculture manages the ditch, so maybe they can regulate we'll check down by the Kawilo Reservoir and all the water that they throw away. If they can measure the amount of water that they're throwing away and then divert that water back to Waipio instead of.
okay. Okay, and that's a good point. So as far as that would be a cool action as far as this plan, and if you want to address that, we know the water issue and the ditch, kind of controversial, lots of different sides to that story, and we don't currently have anything directly addressing the ditch. So if there's something that you want to suggest to that, you can do it tonight, or you can fill out a green form or contact the. But we did take that comment, not that we have that comment as well. Okay, and also just as on the note of like boosting Waipio Taro, that might be something that we want to look at in the economic section when we're talking about boosting and strengthening agriculture, local agriculture. We talked a little bit about branding Hamakua products and making sure that people locally and also statewide and even visitors understand Hamakua as a region and have it known for certain things, and specifically Waipio Valley should be known for its kalo. So that's something that if we look at that section of the economic section and the ag, strengthening agriculture, if there's something that we think we could add to that, that would relate to that. There's already, support local, there's a lot of different kind of more general strategies in that section, but if we want to specifically call out the Waipio, Taro, and kalo industry, we might want to do that.
Just make it known that right now, island of Hawaii, Waipio is the place where you can grow wetland taro.
Yeah. Yeah.
And a lot of people, they like poi that is made from wetland, nothing wrong with the dry land, but this is where it happens in Waipio with its natural elements.
Right.
And so supporting what he said, that the state of Hawaii, the Department of Ag, maintain the water system, especially for the ditch, because debris comes over if you're not taking care of the ditch line
Okay.
that runs in between all of the walls.
Okay.
So whatever comes down to us, that's after the fact, yeah. So if the state continues to take care of what they need to, then that might help, the
Right,
farmers in the valley that is dealing with something that, we have no control over from the top.
Yeah. Okay. Good point. And so you were waiting.
The land sale of Bishop Museum, it changed about game, a lot. And, we're talking about kokua and stuff. I think the only reason why the museum is up for sale is because they need the money and stuff. But, if, the county could help to get the state and OHA involved in supporting the museum, then maybe the museum don't have to sell the lands. The other part is, the elements that we go through in Waipio, the rivers and the ocean, it's pretty hard to farm with higher prices, for land value and stuff. So, to support the farmers, if everything can be held, low, where people can afford to continue farming. And as far as for the Taro farmers, we have been working with the two operators to generate some kind of funds that we can take these monies and purchase equipment and be a little bit more self-sufficient instead of depending so much on the government and stuff. But you know, if the government can support the museum, because I feel the museum holds a lot of the footprints of Hawaii, and a lot of those footprints in the museum, you know, it's a treasure to the whole state. And all those treasures came from all over the state, and a lot came from Waipio. And all those footprints, a lot of that footprints, the people who made those footprints is buried in Waipio. So I think, you know, if the whole state can recognize this, maybe we can have more support in Waipio, you know, to protect these treasures.
Culture. And I need to say this is on behalf of our youngest sister that couldn't make tonight's meeting, who is a full-time farmer in Waipio. And in spite of all of the things that we're discussing, that is, you know, the negative things, she has continuously supported her and her family with Taro in Waipio. And when there's flooding, she doesn't wait. She's up looking for her water, bringing it down. With all of the diseases that have come into the valley, she continues to plant until today. And so, for people like her, my brother, we have a younger brother that lives in the valley too, and Jason lives in the valley. Regardless of all that is happening, they continue to perpetuate what that valley dictates to us, what it is. So, you know, keeping it in ag, keeping it in Taro, you know, it's not only about their livelihood. For some people, it is their, you know, sustenance. It is their life. So, I just needed to say that on behalf of, you know, our youngest sister that works very hard.
Yeah. Thank you.